Krishnaji, if you want to.
Yes, I am here. 1 second.
Yeah, and I can just let me know who to promote up to the panelists, and I'll bring them up.
Yeah, I will. Shanta Shivasavaji if she wants, and then I talked to Somnath ji. Somnath ji was here somewhere.
Yeah,
whatever you don't
I'll take care of it.
We can take that up later, so no issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Yes, and thank you, Krishnaji, for being
on the panel.
Yeah, and they can turn on their cameras and all that. We'll get everyone as the students on board.
Okay, should I? So the first 30 minutes will be presentation. Okay, you start first, and then I will show some presentation as to what things are, and then we can open up the panel Q&A and everything like that.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Okay. So again, thank you for joining us for this open house, Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Advaita, unity behind the diversity. And we're calling it an open house because Krishnaji has taught courses, we've done webinars, and every time this has been such a, I'm Gujarati, one of the terms we use is bhare, right? It's heavy words, heavy subject, Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, Advaita, and I'm learning the words, and we're going to get into that, as Krishnaji said a little bit in his presentation. But Hindu thought provides for the simultaneous coexistence of varied perspectives on the nature of ultimate reality, right? That's at the core of Hinduism. When developed deeply, these perspectives naturally mature into diverse traditions or sampradayas, different ways of interpreting. And in this webinar, we'll be exploring that question on these three perspectives on the Vedanta. Are they mutually incompatible and ultimately irreconcilable? Or are they simply three different perspectives on the same ultimate reality? And without taking too much time getting into what you may have already read about the webinar, we had over 300 people register. Thank you for joining us from Geneva to Portland, Indiana to India, right, everyone? Thank you for being here. We have just over, 70 people on with us so far, and more will join us. And now let me introduce our special guest who you are here zooming in to see. A faculty at HUA. He's been teaching courses. Sri Krishna Kashyap is actually an engineer and a businessman by profession. He holds a master's degree in engineering from the University of Iowa. He's retired, but worked for over 40 years in technology and business, different companies, but he's devoted significant time on the study of Vedanta, Sanskrit, yoga studies, and he's been practicing that for several decades with different teachers, traditional teachers, and he's got a deep interest in recognizing the similarities and differences across the three great flavors of Vedanta, Advaita, Advaita, and Vishishtadvaita. So, I don't know, Krishnaji, is that enough of an introduction, or do you want me to go into more of your, that's good, you think so? It's always a pleasure, and let's just get into it. So Krishnaji, let me hand it off to you and get our students up here and get started. Thank you, Krishnaji.
Okay, let me share the screen then, right? Just a second. Oops.
And in the meantime, I just shared the results of the poll. 73 out of the 78 people attending right now answered the question. Thank you. 44 of you, and you can see that if you want to take a look at that, have been on before. We got a couple students already, 7 students with us today. Thank you for being on. Go ahead, Krishnaji, if you can share screen in that full mode. Yep.
Let me see, switch this over to the, okay, now it should be okay, right?
Perfect.
Okay. Welcome everyone, namaste everyone. So this is the third time we are teaching this course. So it'll be, every time we find something very new in this course. So the topic is Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita, and the unity behind the diversity, okay? So first, let me introduce you the topic. First thing which comes to my mind is why Vedanta? There are so many things to do. Why should we study Vedanta? So this is the first question which can come to anybody. What do we do? Generally, everybody looks for some happiness, from animals to human beings. So we look for money, jobs, something to experience, enjoy, whatever, right? So where can one find happiness? So this is the big question here, right? hard to find it. So people keep on looking for different things to find happiness. And that's normal, right? This is how everybody I know operates in this world. But we don't know where to find happiness. So we look for different things. We test out different things and figure out which one works for us. Okay. Then this is the concept of, like, people always want to go and get the big thing, right? So people want maximum happiness. What is that? In Sanskrit, they call Manushya Ananda, right? Maximum happiness a human being can get. Initially, what? Lots of money is the easiest way to look at, right? People think that money is enough and you want to make lots of it. And if that is not enough, homes, jewelry, whatever possessions, or even the controllership of the whole earth, every country, that would be something like a maximum happiness we can think of. Most people may agree. And I don't want to be old, so I want to be young. That's another condition. I want to have very good health. So there's another condition. So we look for happiness in different ways. And most people look outside for happiness, outside themselves. And most of the time, it is a trial and error method. What do we use? The only tools we have generally are the 6 senses, that is 5 senses and mind, and some common sense. So sometimes, if we achieve some basic goals, we go after ego, fame, charity, compassion to get some happiness. But all of these are views for, something similar to the views of a frog in a well. They're all contained, they're only talking from what they know about. People know only about the 6 senses and the communication through the senses. They don't know something beyond. And what could that be beyond? What could that be? How do we find ultimate happiness? Is there something like that? And what we get through our senses and mind, limited. And that most people can figure out after a few years of life. What is unlimited happiness? This question comes to many people, at least some people for sure. Our rishis of the old defined happiness in slightly different ways. They said, we should not have old age, no thirst, no hunger, no dependency of any kind, no disease, no death. And all the plans I do should come true. All my desires should come true. They gave a totally different view of happiness. And these are the rishis. And they also figured out that we are in these 3 states: sleep, wake, and dream states. And we keep on, continuing in these 3 states. From one state, we go to the another state. And from that state, again, come back to another state. Or maybe a combination of these states. But the rishis realize that happiness cannot be complete in these 3 states. We have to go to a different state. What did they do? They went to meditation. They figured out a 4th state known as the Turiyavastha. And long time back, the rishis, probably they didn't have libraries to go to, but they sat down and meditated. And some of them saw truth, realized truth as it is. And they started imparting that truth to other very interested students. And the way they imparted was almost, they did not need initially anything but silence, because they had mastered the art of yoga, jnana, and other kind of realizations. And just like how in the lower part you see the picture of Dakshinamurti, and it's a very famous episode of Dakshinamurti. It seems that the rishis went and asked for the final truth to Dakshinamurti, who was young, and these rishis were old. And Dakshinamurti is sitting under the tree of this universe itself is the tree there. He said, Nothing. He was silent. And through silence, he communicated knowledge to these rishis. That is the highest level of communication or upadesha or initiation. And they were very happy immediately. This kind of initiations were happening long time back in India. Long time, it could be extended India, it could be, wherever, right? We don't even know where these rishis came from. Some people say some rishis came from, Nordic countries or somewhere else, so we don't know. So these rishis were capable of transmitting information to students without talking. But later on, that didn't work. They started talking. When they started talking, then that information were written down as Vedas. So initially, the Vedas were in the form of knowledge in the mind of the realized person. Later on, people had to write them down, and they became the Vedas, Upanishads, and a number of textbooks. And in the meantime, we lost this implementation knowledge of imparting realization, imparting direct vision to the other people. So that has become a rare commodity now. It's not even a commodity, it's a rare thing. So why are we talking about all these things? Let me introduce you to the subject. What the initial rishis wanted was dharma, wanted to impart dharma. Dharma is that the rules which rule the universe, and dharma is also the path to highest happiness and also the goal. So this term dharma is very difficult to understand, but rishis wanted to understand dharma and impart dharma to people. They came up with 14 sources of knowledge, which is known as also dharmasthanas, also known as vidyasthanas. Vidyasthanas means sources of knowledge. Why are we talking about dharma? They're not just theory. Dharma is the practice of something. So they knew the practice of getting realization or truth, to see truth and realize everything. They had the capability. And the books which came out of that knowledge, the four fundamental ones are the Vedas, which is Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and Atharva Veda on the top left corner. And supporting that, there were 6 Vedangas, that means accessory information to learn Vedas, that is like Chandas, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Jyotisha, Kalpa, Shiksha, which basically refer to like metrics, grammar, etymology, astronomy, ritual, phonetics. These are supportive information so that people can understand the Vedas. And then there was the 4 more Upangas, other accessories. One is Mimamsa, which can be broken into 2, Purva Mimamsa and the Uttara Mimamsa. The Uttara Mimamsa is nothing but Vedanta. That is the essence of the Upanishads. Upanishads themselves are the Vedanta. And in the 4 Upangas, we have Nyaya, which is another logic, Puranas, Dharmashastras. And Dharmashastras are codes of conduct. Puranas are mythological and complex stories which explain the meanings of the Vedas. And Nyaya, the logical analysis, Nyaya is a Shastra. And Mimamsa says Purva is regarding the Karma Kanda or the activity of some kind, maybe even sacrifices, yajnas and stuff like that. More like a practice and theory. The theory is in the Upanishads. That is the essence of the philosophy of the Vedas. So now, each of the Veda are separated into 4 parts: Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, Upanishads. So within each Veda, there are a number of Upanishads. And Upanishads themselves form a core known as the Vedanta texts. And Dharmashastras are several. And Itihasas are historical information like Mahabharata and Ramayana. And you know very well, Gita is a part of Mahabharata. Why are we saying all these things? This is a subject we are trying to understand. Yoga, of course, number of yoga texts were there. Agamas are practical worship methods which came from the Kalpa portion of the Vedas. And these can be separated into Smriti and Shruti. Smriti is that which was remembered by these great rishis, and Shruti is that which was realized by these great rishis. So this is the fundamental set of sources of knowledge of of the Vedika dharma. This is it, right? Then we are trying to introduce a subject called Vedanta in this class. So I'm trying to build a small information, just a quick introduction to the subject. Wow, the moment we see the number of, that is the information, all these books put together could be 1,000,000 verses or 1,000,000 lines, right? A lot of information. The moment people see this, they're confused, too complicated, can't understand. Very hard, yes. But if you really can understand it, how can it be Vedanta? Vedanta has to be very complex. This is just a joke. It does not have to be complex. Acharyas tried to simplify Vedanta for a long, long time. So what did they do? Haribhadra Suri came much later. He's a Jain philosopher. He simplified many things into just 6 systems of philosophy. 6 systems of philosophies are there, like Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, Vedanta, Sankhya, and Yoga. This classification was not the original classification. The original classification was this. That is the 14 sources of information. From there we got into Vedanta, right? But now we come to the topic of this course, Vedanta. We know where Vedanta came from now. We know the whole forest. We are now looking at the tree. Vedanta, the main texts of the Vedanta are Upanishads, Brahma Sutras, Bhagavad Gita. These are the 3 texts known as Prasthanatraya. Based on which Acharya understood it and propagated it, different systems came up. 3 main systems of Vedanta are Advaita, Dvaita, and Vishishtadvaita. This is the topic of the study of this course starting in January. So in each of these topics, like Advaita, Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, what we are going to do is pick up 5 important topics. Nature of the goal, that is Brahman. Nature of the aspirant, that is who wants to get to the goal, that is us, the individual jivatmas. Who are we? What is the nature of this I? Then how do we get to the path? That is, how do we get to the goal? What is the path to get to the goal? And once we get to the goal, what is the nature of that state called the final state or moksha? And what are the obstacles which are preventing us to get to the goal? Why are we here? These are the fundamental topics in philosophy. And people who think they are bound probably will try to find a way. And each of these systems of thought, we will go into these 5 questions and see how these acharyas, the famous acharyas, Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, and Madhvacharya, have dealt with these questions. Obviously, I'll just quickly mention what Advaita is. Advaita states there is one Nirguna Brahman who is attributeless. That is absolute reality. And everything else is relative reality. That is the universe, which is apparent reality. We experience it in a way, but when you go deep, the truth is only one Brahman who is absolute and who is attributeless. So there are different levels of reality. This is explained in using different analogies like snake rope illusion. So just like snake is assumed, imagined looking at a rope in not so lighted place with little light. If you look at a rope, suddenly you might think that it's a snake. So the snake is never there, but it is imagining. Just like that, universe is imagined. It's one view of Advaita, not the final view or anything like that. That's one view of Advaita. One other view is that how this universal space is contained in pot spaces. So we are the different individuals, and one Brahman is contained in our individual surroundings, which are body, mind, and intellect, known as the upadhis. That's another analogy given here. Another analogy is the reflection theory, where one Surya or one sun is reflected on different surfaces. So these are different views of Advaita. We'll go into details, much more details, and question everything in our class. Dvaita is about separation, right? There are always these three entities: the matter, individual souls or jivatmas, and Brahman, who is identical to Hari. All these three are never one. They're always separate. Each individual jivatmas are separate from the others. So are so many levels of devatas, different beings, higher level beings, and also lower level beings like the rakshasas or whatever lower level beings can be. So here there is no combination of anything. They are separate all the time. This is Dvaita. I'm not going to details here in this class, in this webinar. So Vishishtadvaita is something in between, not one side of it where everything is one, or the other Dvaita, which there is always separation. Vishishtadvaita is somewhere in between. So in the causal state, there is some kind of a unity and one non-distinguishable substance, that is Brahman. And at creation, separation occurs into sentient matter and insentient matter, obviously, and the creator, the Ishvara, who is also the creator, sustainer, and destroyer. And the jivas are related to Brahman in a body-soul relationship, which we will go into great depths. And in moksha, or in the final state, an individual can achieve ultimate similarity with Brahman. So is it really Aikya or oneness? We will figure that out, but it's not. I don't want to go into details of this. Just want to introduce the subject called Vishishtadvaita. So that's all. Now, what about the other Vedanta systems? Advaita from Nimbarakacharya, Achintya Bheda Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which now has different Gaudiya Mathas and ISKCON and other followers. Shuddha Advaita of Vallabhacharya, Akshara Purushottama Darshana of Swaminarayan, which is recently coined, but Swaminarayan himself may or may not have coined that. But recently it was published as a separate system of Vedanta. These other Vedantas sort of fall within these logically three separate systems, that is Advaita, Advaita, and Vishishtadvaita. Because logically there can be only three, right? One is separation, one is Dvaita, that is multiplicity, one is one, which is everything is one, and the other one is somewhere in between. So these different Vedantas sort of would be a permutation, combination, or some kind of a modification of these three fundamental systems. Okay. Some people may not like this kind of a classification, but to understand, if we classify, we are not offending any system. Okay, these systems could be pretty independent and of their own value and everything like that. And particularly, followers can be very sincere about these systems of thought. There's no issue. But logically, looking at it just from the conceptual perspective, they fall into the main three mathas. That is why Advaita, Dvaita, and Vishishtadvaita are known as the Trimatas. Trimatas are three main systems, three views. Okay. Now, what do we do in this quarter? We first introduce why Vedanta is, what is Vedanta, the Vidyasthanas, and also talk about the Vaidika views and the Avaidika views on the causation of the universe. That could be, from Buddhism perspective, and also other Vedic systems perspective. Then we talk about background of these three matas, that is three systems, and Buddhism, because Buddhism is assumed to be just prior to Advaita. Then we go deep dive into Advaita, couple of lectures, deep dive into Dvaita, couple of lectures, and then deep dive into Vishishtadvaita, couple of lectures. Okay, then we will try to do the samanvaya or reconciliation between these three systems. And initially, in the reconciliation, we would probably find out how different these systems are, try to understand their differences in depth, and then figure out how to reconcile. If you don't understand the differences very well, it's hard to reconcile. Just want to spend a few minutes. See, we taught this, I taught this course in the previous quarter, the first time we handled this. We thought we would include a lot of Bhagavad Gita in it, and we tried to do that. So in the first 5 classes, it was purely analysis of Vedantas. In the second 5 set of classes was more like how these acharyas view on, think about Bhagavad Gita. It was a little hard because too much of stuff was stuffed into 11 classes. So it wasn't the best way to do it. We learned as we heard from different students, and we learned, and then we changed something. Next time we taught, we took in the second half of the lectures, we only took basically a few verses from Bhagavad Gita where acharyas differed from each other and explained the differences, and then came to a reconciliation, right? But this time what we're going to do for the January quarter, we are going to focus only on the Vedantas, that is 3 Vedantas in depth, and understand the 5 ways of looking at any systems of philosophy, which I explained just a few slides before, right? There's 5 important ways of looking at philosophy. So we look at each of these philosophies, there is matas, Advaita, Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, go through lots of details of these 5 important topics to analyze them, and then come to a reconciliation set of sessions. So this is what we're going to do in the first part of, first January quarter. Part 2 of this course would be where we explain, we just take Bhagavad Gita as the main subject. Here comes so the summary of Shankara Bhashya, Ramanuja Bhashya, and Madhva Bhashya on the Bhagavad Gita. That would be 3 days, 3 lectures on Shankara Bhashya. There are 3 lectures on each of these Bhashyas. That would be 9 lectures, and 2 lectures on Samanvaya or reconciliation between these 3 different views on the Gita. So it will be Gita focused in the next quarter. For this quarter, we would be Vedanta focused. So to understand Vedanta in quite, in depth. This is the whole idea of this class. Now I will open this to question answers. Ankurji?
Yes, wonderful. So we have a few questions, but I don't know if you wanted to get some of the students who are now, previous students who are on the panel. We have, I think, 4 previous students who have joined us, Shantaji, Parthji, Ishwarji, and somebody who...
Maybe we could give each of the panelists a few minutes to express what they found, what they thought about the course. That would be a good idea to start.
Yeah.
Parthaji, you want to start, Parthaji? We can't hear you. You're muted. Hold on a second.
No, I unmuted myself. Thank you very much for calling on me. And congratulations, Krishnaji, to get into a forest setting. It is very befitting for a guru to teach his disciples. So that's very good. And Krishnaji is I was always amazed and awed at each of the classes, and I attended each one of the presentations diligently. and throughout the course. And I was also one of the troublemakers. I'm sure Krishnaji will say that. And it is very good that HUA and Krishnaji decided to split the course into two parts, because what we faced was an enormous task, and because of the diversity of the composition of the students, it was kind of difficult for comprehension for all students. And for that, Krishnaji was always patient, always receptive, and always eager. And he has been available and continues to be available for all time to come, I suppose. So this is a course that I was very happy to have taken, and I plan to continue to bother him in times to come. And I will be happy to address any specific questions later on. At this time, I'll yield to other panelists.
Thank you very much, Bhaktaji. Shantaji, you want to say something?
Namaste, Krishnaji. Namaste, everyone. First of all, I have to thank HUA for bringing you to give us this course. I would say that person like me who had zero knowledge of Vedanta, this was my first course ever with no knowledge of Sanskrit. So I found it overwhelming at the beginning, but then I could not stay away from Krishnaji's class, even though he went over the time and it was late night where I live. So, but I was somehow glued to his presence and the way he was teaching. I think everyone should take Vedanta, and there is so much to learn. And as Krishnaji said, happiness, everyone is looking for happiness. That was not the objective that I had in mind when I took the course, because I just wanted to familiarize myself with Vedanta. People were talking about it. So I have learned a lot from, and as Parthaji said, Krishnaji is so patient. He has put his 40 years research into one course, and so it's a good idea he divided into two so he can give more knowledge over a period of time. I would say that everyone should take this course. There is so much to learn, and I'm motivated. Actually, I thought I will be discouraged, but then I was in the beginning, but then I spoke to Krishnaji and he gave me some tips how to go about the course. And I'm currently finishing the course, and it's so good to know about the views of the three acharyas and how they have been influenced by Bhagavad Gita, and then how one can find unity in diversity and the reconciliation. So to me, I have enriched myself, and I would like everyone else to benefit from Krishnaji's enormous knowledge. It's commendable, and he is outstanding, and I just want to listen to him all the time. So, thank you very much, Krishnaji, and thank you, HUA.
Namaste, Krishnaji. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like to thank HUA for definitely bringing Krishnaji into the faculty. I think he has a remarkable insight into all the three systems. And I'm primarily trained in Advaita Sampradaya, and I have studied Vishishtadvaita, but this course actually allowed me to form a Samanvaya in my head, which is basically reconciliation. So even though it's extremely hard to attempt a reconciliation, I think Krishnaji has done a remarkable, initiative. to attempt it. I took it the first time he offered this course, and like I agree with many of them that to me it felt like Krishnaji was trying to pack a lot of stuff into that course, and personally I was like relishing it, but I was also thinking that it will be great going forward if it was split, and that's exactly what is happening. So that's a remarkable thing to happen. The other thing I want to mention about the course itself is that with respect to the Vaidika Sampradaya, we have karma, upasana, and jnana. And what Krishnaji has done is he has given the perspective on how the Samanvaya is possible if you think of bhakti as the commonality between the three matas. And he has substantiated that very well with slokas from Bhagavad Gita. So to me, that was a great experience going through the Samanvaya. And I've been continuing that even after the course ended. So to me, that was a great opportunity. Thank you, Krishnaji.
Thank you very much. Somnathji, can you please open the camera? Turn on the camera. Oh, okay. Yes. Now we can see.
Namaste, everyone. I will be speaking Hindi and English, both together. Hopefully, people can pick up what I'm trying to get across. So fantastic course. Just like how Ishwarji mentioned earlier, intellectually, I started and I think I am with the viewpoint that real is one and one is real. But after having attended this course, it made me aware of my limitations, that the Advaita school of thought also has its merits in terms of how to conduct your life, in terms of modulating your expectations. It's nice to think of one as a goal in terms of a practitioner. Like Krishnaji also suggested, you might get there in a moment, but it might take you many lifetimes also, because there are errors, ignorances, and of course, the sources of knowledge that Krishnaji already described. So for me, the question, what is in it for me, is for everybody else who's listening, it's about your identity and your mission. You have to do the ekagrata of your identity, and this body of knowledge you have, or at least I was able to somehow approach it in a manner which gives it an akhandata, that yes, one splits into the many, but the art and the skill of the practice will lie with each individual practitioner in how the many tends to again go back to the one. Of course, it will be a very beautiful thing if you can achieve it within this lifetime. But the point here is, I think everybody will get a very deep insight into the great intellectual traditions that our ancestors, all the rishis, all the acharyas have laid the roadmap for us. Great teachers like Krishnaji are illuminating the pathway for us, and we just, have to get going on it. And that's all I have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Somnathji. And all of the panelists made a big mistake. I have to openly say that right away, because people will take the wrong information and go home. I don't want them to do that. I'm just a postman. My Guruji is like Sri KSV, Subramaniam ji, and so many other Guru, Anantarangachar, SM Srinivasachari, and so many of my acharyas. I'm just a postman. They gave me a lot of mail. I'm delivering all this mail to you. Nothing more than a postman. Okay, that is very clear in my mind, and that all of you have to remember. Remember my gurus who said to me, without expectations, they gave me so much of information. I had too much to carry here, and I had to give it to everybody. That's about it. Namaste. Any questions? Ankurji, you can take over and see what you want to do.
Yeah, no, so we'll take some questions. There's a couple in the Q&A box. Thank you for those testimonials. Every time, Krishnaji, you exude that aura. Yes, you call it a postman, but there's so much knowledge and just the way that you explain it. I think it transcended and people realize. I dropped the details to the course in the chat. Click the link. It's going to be on Mondays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Quarter by quarter, we change, so please take a look at that. And then let me ask you a second question. we're still at just about 100 people, like 96, right? I think you can see it now. Please let us know if you're interested in enrolling in the course. Just fill it out. Yes, no, maybe. I have questions. We had about 120 people at, I think, the peak, but before, you leave, please fill out this question. Let us know to follow up. I hope you're interested. I'm interested. We had wonderful student testimonials, but if you have questions you want to ask before the end of this webinar, we still have, quite a good amount of time, and we can take your questions. So Sriram Sarvatam, Dr. Sriramji, welcome. Glad to have you on. I should promote you to a panelist, but he's asking, let me promote you on and you can ask your question directly. And then Prashantji, does the course explain material, Upadana Karana and Nimitta Karana in detail?
Of course, we will try to do as much as possible in-depth explanation of what Upadana Karana is, which is material causality, and what is Nimitta Karana. Definitely, we will go into detail. No question about it.
And then Balaji, you didn't want to speak? I think he took your call, your class also, right? If you want to get on board, if you can read the Q&A, I don't know if I read it. Originally, Vedas were all given as one big bundle of knowledge to the ages. Can you read that, Krishnaji? And if you want to comment, because I think he took the course with you, right?
Is it in the chat box?
No, it's in the Q&A box. So the Q&A box is at the bottom.
Okay, Q&A box. Okay, got it. Okay, let me read that. Okay, Sriram Sarvatam already with. One second. I had a question about Sankhya in one of the slides. You characterize it as a model of matter and consciousness. I've heard it being described as dualistic model as well. Are Sankhya and Dvaita closely related? Sankhya and Dvaita, Sankhya and Vedanta are generally related, right? Because Sankhya means Purusha and Prakriti. In Sankhya, the main things is Purusha is the individual consciousness. There are many individual consciousness accepted in Sankhya, and Prakriti is matter, and this Purusha and Prakriti are somehow combined with each other. They are stuck with each other in a way. But the Sankhya generally does not accept the existence of Ishvara. There are two views in Sankhya, Nirishvara Sankhya and Seshvara Sankhya. So the thing is, in Nirishvara, they don't need the Ishvara there. Seshvara, they need the Ishvara, or the controlling the one person. And definition, Dr. Sriramji knows about your Yoga Sutras, how Yoga Sutras define God. What is the definition of Ishvara in the Yoga Sutras? Sriramji is an expert in that, so we know. Matter and consciousness is just an English way of putting Purusha and Prakriti, that's all. It's not, that's not supposed to be a full explanation. It is just a simple presentation, so that if I put too many Sanskrit words like Prakriti, Purusha, just common people don't understand the significance of it, that's all. Second thing is, Bala Ayarji says, originally, Vedas were all given as one big bundle of knowledge to the ages. Later, Vyasa organized them in 4 parts. Orthodox ones following the Jaiminist path tried to say, I am correct and all others are wrong, and said that only Karmakanda is true Vedas. You are right and I am also right. I didn't understand the question.
Yeah,
I agree with Bala Ayarji, that's correct actually. So there is so basically what the Karma Kanda people and Jnana Kanda people were probably taking 2 different sides, and we agree on that. The Mimamsakas are the Karma Kanda people. They said the Karmaiva Mimamsakaha. That means Mimamsa is the end of everything. So that is the view taken by Mimamsakas. And the Uttara Mimamsakas or the Vedantins said Jnana Deva Moksha. Only through Jnana one can attain moksha. So they both of them took different views, but there are people who analyze both systems and make some sense out of it.
Great.
Advaita and Vishishtadvaita and Dvaita view these karma and jnana in slightly different ways.
Purnimaji is asking how many classes in total? 11. The cost, we're glad to offer a $100 discount, so it's going to be a $200 course. for the next 2 days. We also have scholarships for folks in Greater Bharat area, Girmitya countries. So it's going to be a $200 course. Other scholarships are available. And you're going to be plugged into the learning management system. It's all managed there, course by course, week by week. And you have access to recordings. If Krishnaji has readings, it'll all be linked through there, and you'll get your @hua.edu email address. So if you haven't taken a course at HUA yet, this is one to really get started, I think, get you started, along with the orientation class. But this one with Krishnaji, if you're on, please do consider it. There is not a certificate for this one course, but we're building a broader certificate program where this will, Krishnaji's courses will be something that gives you credit towards. And it is a one credit unit hour, right? As a continuing education course that has no prerequisites. So Krishnaji, if you want to talk on that a little bit more, but I think I laid it out. And I'll drop the link to the course in the chat one more time.
Okay, I didn't know exactly what to say. So, you wanted me to look at the question answers or answer about something else which you're talking about right now? And I sort of missed it.
No, so I just gave a little background, pretty much you had on the course itself. So I hope that was okay if you wanted to add to that. Otherwise,
yeah, so the course is 11 classes, right? And there, the expectation, I have removed all quizzes from grading. So we are not going to grade any quizzes. If at all there are quizzes, they can just use it for learning only. And there will be a paper at the end. They have to write a paper about how to reconcile the three systems of Vedanta. So that will be a summary of what we do in the course. So that they have to write up a 1,000-word paper. That's the only expectation from the course. And that, believe me, if they do that kind of a paper, they would understand a lot of things, and that will stay with them forever in their lives. And next question here, how do you differentiate Dvaita and Sankhya philosophy? So the thing is, the fundamental way of looking, the Ishvara Krishna Sankhya philosophy mainly is Nirishvara. That means there is no God there. What they say is there are consciousnesses, that is several individual consciousnesses. They got stuck in matter. And the Sankhya, that is the Purusha, they call it as Purusha, is Nishkriya. That means it does not act. But because of the connection to matter, they act and they get stuck in this. So the whole idea is isolation from matter. That is, getting away from matter is the goal there. And that will give ultimate happiness or whatever, or the Swaswarupa, or realization of one's own self, which is only consciousness. That is the Sankhya view. That is generally taken as the Purva Paksha, or the prior view for all the Vedantas, including Dvaita Vedanta. So the Vedanta considers Sankhya as a prior view and establishes a Siddhanta, that is a decisive, this is my right view, or this is my view, is established by the Vedantins. And Dvaita is also a Vedanta system. And Vedanta, only thing is in Dvaita, there are three obviously different entities: Hari or Brahman, that is Lord, and all the jivas, which are stratified into about 30 or something classes, and then matter. And ultimate bhakti or devotion to the Lord is the method to achieve perfection and moksha, according to Dvaita. Here, bhakti is not at all emphasized in pure Sankhya philosophy. So generally, that is the idea. I don't want to take a huge, this is Sankhya, you can read each, for example, just on Chandogya Upanishad, there will be a Sankhya commentary on it. That will take 10 classes to explain. So it's a very big question you have asked. Koti Tumuru has asked, what are the top 5 things that we can take from this class and can apply in our day-to-day life? Very good question. The first thing is, it gives you an idea that going after the sensual objects is not the final thing. One has to restrain from the sensual objects to go to a higher level of knowledge and happiness. That's one simple thing you need to you will get to know. Another thing is not to be very sectarian in view. That means there are many, many different views. It is better to consider all views and come to a conclusion and follow, even if they follow any particular sect or any particular system of thought, you need to have an appreciation to the rest of the systems. And that is emphasized in this class. And very clearly, we establish at the end that Vedanta as a whole is the message of the rishis. And the acharyas gave an interpretation on them. But the message of the rishis, though complicated, are one subject, and they are homogeneous in many ways, and they can be put into one system, even though the acharyas view in different ways. That's one thing you get out of this class. The second thing is clearly understanding how Buddhism and other Advaita systems were there, and how each of these systems developed in competition to Buddhism as well as in collaboration with Buddhism. I personally have a lot of respect for Buddha and Buddhism in general. And those ideas of Buddhism gives a lot of help in understanding the fundamentals of Vedanta. So that is also will be, those things will be explained. And the other thing, what comes to my mind now, you can ask the panelists how much they got out of it. Maybe they should chime in and say what else they got out of it in this 5 things or 4 things they got out of the courses. Anybody? Okay, Somnathji.
Well, I mean, sources of knowledge and sources of error, causes of sorrow, those 3 things are big takeaways from it, from this course for me. Being able to correctly identify when, you are going through a low phase in your life and reconciling your mental state to that particular set of circumstances. It's I am not a qualified psychologist, but all I will say is it's a very good way of you taking ownership of yourself, without resorting to any external devices. You would have obviously seen all around you, people tend to report that mental well-being is a big source of distress to a lot of people around us. For me personally, not being adjusted to your circumstances and going through mental anguish, this helped me. Not that I was going through it, but this helps me take ownership of my situation in terms of who I am, what I should be looking to do, and take it from there. That's my input.
Thank you so much. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yes, I would like to. This is Parthasarathi. First of all, I would like to modify the impression given that this course helps you restrain your senses or teaches you to restrain your senses. I would like to modify it to say that it has loftier objectives and delivery. And the objective and delivery is actually realizing peace. And every time we say Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, what is that Shanti? That Shanti is the mental reconciliation of all things that we see and the things that we are to see. And this course, and especially the idea of Samanvaya, makes you think and realize the inconsequential nature of what is called sense satisfaction.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay, Ishwarji. Oh, I'm sorry. You're not done yet, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, the one thing I took from the course is I found this course to be a form of satsang in a sense, because there is a constant contemplation on the Sat Vastu, which is Brahman. And the fact that I always had great reverence for the Acharyas in Vishishtadvaita and Dvaita Sampradaya. But when somebody like Krishnaji, let's say, brings Swami Desikan and his works to the fore, or brings references from Brahma Sutras, so what that basically made me is, it made me more serious about pursuing those leads, to spend more time thinking about those higher ennobling thoughts. So to me, it was a satsanga in that sense.
Thank you. Let me take one more question here. Another Krishna is asking me, Krishnaji, will you cover any scientific advancements that prove the universality of consciousness? See, this is not a direct topic which we take in this class, but we casually mention that in science, what happens is, one thing is about the external world. Of course, science is going, very high speed into finding out what the external world is. And they're also doing recently, in the last 10, 15 years, a lot of research into the hard problem of consciousness. So there are hundreds and hundreds of papers and experiments they're doing on the hard problem of consciousness. So in a way, eventually they will get there. There are so many theories, pantheism and emergent consciousness. So many theories are there in science. They're not really coherent yet. So I won't even go attempt this in this way to prove the university of consciousness. Why am I proving what? First, we need to understand what it is. We need to realize what it is. For realization, one has to, the only way to realize, in fact, is isolating yourself from everything else. And you have to figure out who you are. And so how does science help you that? Our acharyas and yogis, and they have done a lot of work. Let us have some little bit respect for our own people who have spent tons and tons of time on spiritual advancement. I have nothing against science, but we should use science in every way to understand this subject. So I think science and philosophy, science and yoga, philosophy, they go together. I have no hatred to anything. There is no thing like that. But I don't see science directly addressing this topic of consciousness. The last time I talked to 7 or 8 research people in universities, particularly psychiatrists, neuroscientists, cognition, and those kind of people, they told me that, oh, Krishna, if I write anything, as to even if I submit a request for funds, that I will be doing something in consciousness or something like that, that will be cancelled. The funding will go away. This is their unified view. So don't think that science is going to help you out in terms of consciousness. If you want to really understand consciousness, give up something and turn inwards. Turn inwards and find out what consciousness is. You can't find too much from science. Not the way it is today. That's my view. To maybe very inadequately experience, just I blurt out something just like that. Let us talk about it. Why don't we think very deeply and figure out what it is?
Great. And so if you haven't filled out the poll, just if you're interested, we had 70 people fill out that first poll, only 57 out of the 70 folks. So please fill that out. Let us know if you're interested in enrolling in the course. I don't know if Shantaji had something to say. I thought I saw you unmute, but any other students want to say anything? Or yeah. I think that was the last bit of the Q&A. If you have a question you want to drop in the Q&A box, please do that. It is right at the top of the hour, so we're doing pretty good on time. Krishnaji, back to you until
one question here. Please differentiate Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita based on Brahman, Nirgun, and Sagun, Jivatma, Paramatma, Jagat, Word, Maya. Okay, I'll just take a simple, one paragraph difference between these. Of course, this question is very simple question of saying, in a simple way saying that, tell me all the information in the 11 classes in a few minutes. The whole class is meant to address this question. Very well worded question. Okay. So in simple terms, Advaita says that whatever you see here is not real. What is real is consciousness underlying everything, which cannot be explained in any terms related to this universe. That is why it has to be explained in a negative way. Neti, neti. That means not this, not this, not this. Referring to anything in this universe, you take up a tree, you take up a consciousness, take up anything like, oh, not like this, not like this, not this. So only in that terms, negative way, you can experience or you can understand Brahman, and that is beyond all gunas. It is nirguna. That is Advaita way of looking at it. And all this thing we experience is relatively real. Yes, if I go out and if it is raining, I will get drenched. I do feel that, oh, I am getting drenched. So all this external universe is not that it is totally unreal. It is relatively real to me. But to the inner consciousness that Nirguna Brahman, all these things does not exist anyway. And what is Maya? Maya, according to Advaita, is that which is not there. That is, from Brahman's perspective, Maya is not there. This universe, Maya, nothing is there. From the human perspective, for bound, that is a person, if somebody is bound, they would say, yes, I am bound, I am sick, I am tall, I am in this condition and that condition, because they're all relative information. And that person always thinks like that. So this Maya is that which causes this universal appearance, universal feeling, experience. That's what Maya is according to Advaita. But according to Vishishtadvaita and even Dvaita to some extent, that is why it's not very easy to draw the lines. Right? Suppose just take Dvaita for now. Dvaita believes in there is no necessity for Maya. Take Maya as the power of the God. So Hari is the Lord. Hari's power is this universal play. And everybody is dependent on Hari only. That is, the jivas and the matter, everything is dependent on Hari only. Hari is the only independent entity. So that's how Dvaita deals with it. And Dvaita says only through bhakti, devotion to that Hari, you will move further and experience more happiness. And you can only get to one level, but still you'll be constantly trying to search and experience that Brahman, that Hari, and improve your bhakti in this process. And also jnana will be improved in this process. That is the Dvaita view. The Vishishtadvaita view is slightly different. It says that Hari, that is according to Ramanujacharya, the Brahman is known as Sriman Narayana. That is Sri and Narayana together form one entity, that is Sriman Narayana, that is Brahman. He is Sagun, that means he has got infinite mercy, power. He is all-pervading. All the different auspicious qualities are there. And this universe is a divine play. And one might ask, why is he playing and why are we suffering? But suffering is also given to only to realize that Brahman. Once a person realizes, that person will thank Brahman and say, why, oh my God, why you gave me suffering, I enjoyed it, because through that I could realize this wonderful Brahman. So finally, the question of why we got caught, why we are imprisoned, why we are in this universe, whatever, will be answered only once when one gets realization. All the doubts will be gone. All the questions will be answered only when that person realizes Brahman. This is common to all three systems, by the way. So this is in a way three different systems. It will take much longer to make it very clear to you. That is the main problem. I would really think that you should take the class. You ask the right question, you'll get the answer. Next one, Namaste, is professor related to Dr. Narayana Swamiji from LA. Guru Shishya Parampara to be specific. I don't know Dr. Narayana Swamiji, and because there may be many Narayana Swamiji there, I don't know this particular person. Sorry.
Right. I think that came to the end of the Q&A box. I dropped the link to the course again. Please do consider enrolling. Krishnaji, maybe closing thoughts, or if you want to, Shantaji, if you wanted to say something, I think you did.
Just one point, Nanda Kumar asked a question. One point, I'll make it sure. See, the thing is, I could not explain Vishishtadvaita completely to you. See, the thing is, what the fundamental aspect of Vishishtadvaita is, there is one non-differentiated entity called Brahman in the beginning, right? That Brahman, which is Nama Rupa Vibhaga Anarha, that means in that there is no names or forms. From that state, this universe comes with Jiva and Jada. That is individual consciousness and matter. So that is the play of the Brahman. Now, in this phase of creation, we are all different. We are, and the only way to go further from here is through what Bhagavad Gita talks about as Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga gives you self-realization. And from there, using Bhakti Yoga, one can know the Lord and then become united with the Lord. So at the end, there will be ultimate similarity to Brahman. This is different from Dvaita. In Dvaita, they don't accept as common cause, that is human. Brahman being the material cause is not accepted in Dvaita. For example, Prakriti or Jivas, they did not come from Brahman. They were always separate in Dvaita. In Vishishtadvaita, at the beginning, they were all one. They are undifferentiated, and Brahman is the cause of everything. And Brahman transforms himself into this universe in Vishishtadvaita. That is material causality. So it goes on and on. It's not going to stop here. The questions can't be dealt with in this hour, actually. But that's a good question. It is not Vishishtadvaita, it is Vishishtadvaita. The difference is accepted in this state. In the moksha state and in the creation state, the differences go away in Vishishtadvaita.
So Krishnaji, I just wanted to add, you were asking what the course brought to you. To me, it has brought inner transformation.
Wow, very good.
That's because now I'm beginning to think totally differently, having listened to you and the acharyas and their pathway to self-realization. So it has humbled me, and that's what it has brought to me. So thank you very much.
We are all very happy that this happened. Only that higher energy could have done that. Nothing what we do can do that. Only higher energy can do that up there.
But you have been the instrument.
I can't even think like that. I told you, right? My Guruji told me, if I think that I am the cause of anything good, that moment I will be destroyed. So I don't want to think that I'm anything. Just casual, be a friend, that's all. We're all friends.
Great. Yes, glad to be your friend. Glad to have more friends. And Hindu University of America is building this platform, not just on friendship, but on these deep concepts of where we're coming from, where we're going, why we're here, and then building a Hindu institution and a platform that can elevate people like Krishnaji to share this message with all of us. So please consider taking this course. We'll send a follow-up email. Thank you again for participating. Krishnaji, closing words?
And I just want to make one point, okay, about the Hindu University of America. I know Kalyan Vishwanathanji for a very long time, not just a few years, more than about 10, 11 years or something like that. We were working together in a company, and he was my boss there. And he is now also my boss in this university. But honestly, I tell you, it takes a lot of guts to start a university, and that too would take up some university which is going to almost dogs, and bringing up together and making things happen in university. He has worked very hard, and I know how many times he has traveled to how many number of places, and how many people have worked with him, promised him that something will happen, and nothing has happened many times, but still he has gone without a break and put together all of us. And I really thank Kalyan Vishwanathan and all his teams, team, every one of Ankurji and everybody are doing a fantastic job. It is very difficult to stay this course. It's easy to go pick up the newspaper and say, oh, Elon Musk, $300 billion. I need to follow Elon Musk. See, that is the natural way people will go. When they know the whole life together, that we also are going to become old, we may have other issues, then we look at philosophy and other things. And focusing on dharma, focusing on all these subjects is very important. And we thank Kalyan Vishwanathan and the whole team so much from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you. And all of you should contribute in some way to propagate this, to understand. That is the only way we're going to send some information to ourselves, our children, and next generation. So keep that in mind. Thank you.
Great. Dhanyavad. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Namaste.